You're looking at Californians cheering on Republican gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder. He's conducted several of those rallies over the weekend in his state. This comes as the nation gets closer to the recall special election of the current governor of California, pretty boy Gavin Newsom, scheduled for September 14th. Joining me now to discuss is the man himself, California gubernatorial candidate, radio host, and producer of the must-see documentary, Uncle Tom, Larry Elder. Sir, it is great to see you once again. Welcome back to the Salcedo Show. And new polls showing that you're the front runner in among the Republican candidates to challenge Gavin Newsom in this upcoming recall. Talk to us about the progress that you have made and your team has made to save the once golden state.
Well, it's been quite sensational, Chris, and thank you so much for having me. Look, they're scared to death. They know that Californians are leaving this state for the first time in the state's 170-year history, and the number one reason that people cite for leaving is the cost of housing. Millionaires and billionaires are leaving, and there's a new report coming out from the Hoover Institution showing that a lot of big tech companies are leaving. The premise has always been, well, we can let a lot of people leave, but the big tech companies, the ones that don't spew out a lot of CO2, they're always going to stay here. They're leaving as well. We have a rise in homelessness here in California. And what really irked people, why 1.7 million people signed that petition to have this man recalled, a third of them or so were independents and Democrats who just voted for him a couple years earlier, is the way he ignored science and shut down this state in the most draconian way compared to all the other 49 states, while having his own kids enjoy in-person private education, exempting his own winery, and sitting up there at that famous French Laundry with the very lobbyists that drafted the mandate that they were violating by not wearing masks and by not engaging in social distancing. And don't forget his own kid, after a mandate was to wear masks outdoors, were at a summer camp not wearing masks. The hypocrisy angered so many people, and the rise of homelessness, you add it all together, and the majority of Californians, even those who don't want to recall, do not want him to serve another 4 years.
Yeah, and don't forget the crime wave out there in
Right.
California. You know, the Democrats and their friends in the biased press, they of course, they want to keep Newsom in there. So you're contending that they're out there attacking you in full force to avoid focusing on Newsom's abysmal record. Expand on that, will you?
Well, recently the LA Times referred to me as the black face of white supremacy. Chris, you've known me for a while. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not a white supremacist. And that's what they're doing. They're diverting attention from the rising crime, as you pointed out, and the decline and the quality of public education, particularly in urban areas. The black and brown parents, according to the polls, want choice in education, as do I. The teachers union adamantly opposed to that, and they're the number one funder of my opponent, Gavin Newsom. So you add up the crime, the homelessness, the decline in the quality of education, people leaving California for the very first time. We've got water shortages, for crying out loud, and even the drought. The governor claimed he cleared away 90,000 acres of fallen trees, which would still be a drop in the bucket. Turns out he misled by a factor of 7. He only cleared out 13% of what he said. The outgoing governor, Jerry Brown, said 500,000 acres needed to be cleared away. He hasn't even pretty much touched that. So we don't have the resources and the money devoted towards that. So you have the fires, you have the crime, you have the homelessness, you have the crappy quality of education of public schools in urban settings, and the way this man arrogantly shut down the state while ignoring science and while exempting himself from the very mandates he jammed down the throats of the California people. They are angry. They want him gone, and I believe he will be gone come September 14.
And you know what, the LA Times, they ought to be ashamed for that racist headline that they put out. That is, I have never heard of anything like that coming out of California. That's amazing to me. Turning to other news coming out of the People's Republic of California, we saw large anti-vaccine mandate protests, not anti-vaccine, but anti-government mandates take place in Santa Monica over the weekend. Clearly, many people are opposed to government getting into their health care decisions, and yet, Madam Pelosi hosted a non-socially distanced fundraiser in Napa Valley over the weekend where none of the people were wearing masks there, as far as we could tell, and they weren't socially distanced. Let me ask you this, Mr. Elder. If you win out and you become the next governor of the great state of California, will you be in the mandating masks, mandating vaccine business?
First of all, Chris, I'm shocked at you to suggest that perhaps Nancy Pelosi is being hypocritical by demanding that people wear masks and social distancing when she doesn't do the same thing. I'm shocked, Chris, that you be that cynical. When I become governor, I don't drink coffee, I drink tea. But before I have my first cup of tea, to the extent that there are statewide mask mandates and statewide vaccine mandates for state workers, they will be repealed before I have my first cup of coffee, I assure you. This should be done at the local level and let parents decide. This is still America. We still have freedom. I was at a campaign stop in an area of LA called Palm Desert. I stopped into a coffee shop. I noticed that half the wait staff was wearing masks, half were not. The young lady who waited on me was not wearing a mask. I asked her whether there was a policy. She said, yeah, well, my boss lets us decide our own whether or not we want to wear a mask or not. I said, have you been vaccinated? She said, no. I said, may I ask why? She said, you can ask, but smiled and said, I don't have to give you a reason. Isn't this America?
Yeah, it is supposed to be America. That's the last time I checked. Look, another person with California ties, VP Kamala Harris. She was so unpopular in California. Her own state didn't support her for president. But some are calling her out after she is asked about Biden's failure in his troop withdrawal out of Afghanistan. Watch this.
Your response to reports of Americans. Hold on. Slow down, everybody. I want to talk about two things. First, Afghanistan. We couldn't have a higher priority right now.
There she is, cackling Kamala, just chuckling it up over this disaster in Afghanistan. What say you, Mr. Elder?
Well, that's the Kamala cackle that's made her probably the most unpopular vice president in about 50 years. And by the way, I'm urging people, Chris, to go to electelder.com, electelder.com, throw a little something in the tip jar, because Gavin Newsom can raise and spend an unlimited amount of money. He's already raised about $50 million, far more than I've raised, mostly from the usual suspects, the teachers union, the public sector's union, big tech, and Hollywood, all to defeat me. He has no campaign expenditure or raising limitations. I do. If I'm going to defeat him, I'm going to need help from Californians and non-Californians. So please go to electelder.com, electelder.com.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.